Good morning, everyone. I haven't made a video in a couple of weeks because, well, I was waiting for my Christmas gift to arrive. I have a light bar up there now to help to um, put a little bit more light on here, especially when I'm recording in the morning before all the lights turn on. So, yep, I was waiting for that. And plus, I really didn't have a whole lot to discuss, although I really should have been doing them more often. But today's episode, I wanted to discuss with you how to um, relate to internet speed, because a lot of times I will ask a client when they're having internet problems what's their internet speed, and they usually don't know, and that's not uncommon. They'll tell me like, well, I have Frontier, or I have Spectrum, or I've got Verizon, and that gives me ballpark ideas. But when you get into, like, with Spectrum, you have multiple packages. You have the basic home service is 100 by 10, and then you have a higher package for gaming and so on and so forth. But most of the time the numbers don't mean anything to anyone because there's no way to relate to them. Well, today I'm going to try and help you relate to these numbers. So your internet speed, from now on, I want you to kind of remember that your internet speed is really like miles per hour on a car. We use a lot of car analogies around here because most everyone has a vehicle, so they understand some of those things. Like when we describe how a hard drive is failing on a mechanical drive, it's kind of like, the tread on your tires are wearing out, or the rotors on your brake systems are cutting grooves into the track. So we use those a lot when we're describing things. So anyways, back to internet speed, and from now on, I don't want you to really worry about, if it's 100 megabits per second, because for the most part, that doesn't mean anything for anyone other than the higher the number, the faster you go. I want you to really think about miles per hour versus megabits per second. So here's the reason why. Frontier, if you have their DSL service, Frontier's basic internet service over the phone line is about 3 megabits per second. It's slow. You know that's slow. But if we put it at 3 miles per hour, then it's more relatable. That's walking speed. Well, a little bit less than walking speed. Most people walk at about 4, but yeah, 3 miles an hour, that's about walking speed. And so if you have a higher package, I believe CrossNet, well, it's not CrossNet anymore. It's Ohio Bell out of Port Clinton. Their DSL service will give you 5 to 10 miles per hour, which is faster than Frontier's service. Then you get into, like I said, AT&T with their DSL service, and you can get somewhere between 15 miles per hour. So if you start relating the bits per second or megabits per second to miles per hour, it starts making a lot more sense to you, and that's how I want people to start relating this, so they can visualize it better. So for most Spectrum and Buckeye cable services, your home service is around about 100 miles per hour. So that's kind of fast for a car. So let's look at speedtest.net. It's one of the free websites you can use to check your internet speed. And if you look there, it says speed test by Okla, something like that. Anyways, speedtest.net. When you open it up, you'll get a website that looks like this. In this case, you'll see I'm using Spectrum, and if we do go, it's going to tell you how fast my internet speed is. So in this case, right now I'm at 90, 131, 150, so I've now went from car to jet. And so yeah, you can see this is how I want you to relate to it. If this is a speedometer, you can see that I'm going, roughly 270 miles per hour. So that's like a jet engine. Now this second number is how fast I'm uploading it to the internet, which is 40 miles an hour. What is that? Top end of a moped, low end of a motorcycle. A little bit faster than 35 miles an hour. So this is how I want you all to kind of start visualizing how fast your internet is. performance. And if you relate it to me in such a fashion, also when you're talking to me on the phone or in person, I'm going 240 miles an hour. My internet, I can get only 50 miles per hour. I would know exactly what you meant by telling me this. And it's more relatable to you because if you're driving a vehicle, most of us, we don't do no more than 55, 60, 65, 70 unless we're on the turnpike. Then some of you all do way more than that. But if I told you that instead of megabits per second, let me show you that. Instead of megabits per second, if we change that over to miles per hour, it would make more sense to you, wouldn't it? And so that's how I want you to remember this. Now, a lot of things on a computer with Windows 10, with the new operating system Windows 11, it's what the Studio software is using, internet speed plays a big part of its performance. So if your operating system is not connected to the internet, it will run a lot faster versus when it's pulling information off the internet. So if you have a slow internet connection, it's going to drag your computer down. If you have a fast internet, then it's going to perform relatively well. So the one thing is if you need to improve the performance of your computer and you don't need the internet, turn your Wi-Fi off. That sounds counterproductive, doesn't it? But if you're using like QuickBooks, an older version, not the new one, the older version where it did some pulling off of into its website, if you turned off your Wi-Fi and just strictly did QuickBooks locally, you would see a vast improvement over trying to be connected online because it's not uploading and downloading information. It's strictly running off the hardware of your computer. So just little observations I've seen. Word 2016 and above, I believe works very much the same way. So if you have the internet running in the background and Word is acting kind of sluggish, turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off your internet connection and see if it improves it. But just have to remember you got to turn it back on because most modern computers and so many software packages rely on an internet connection. If you don't have it, it's okay. So if your internet connection for QuickBooks, for Word, for Office, Excel, hundreds of other Wi-Fi or internet capable software packages, again, if your internet speed is that of a walk, you're going to drag that program down. Where if you have a higher speed internet, where in this case I'm flying at the low end of a jet, obviously it's going to work kind of well. And this is going to be kind of true. You might hear if you're renewing a contract or updating your contract or getting Netflix for the first time, they might talk about, well, your minimum speed needs to be X. That number has no meaning to you, especially if you have no idea what it is. But if you can relate it to miles per hour, once upon a time, I think Netflix said you had to have 5 miles an hour for Netflix to work, at least on minimum settings. I think it's now 15. So, you're going from a walk to a pretty good run at 15 miles an hour. But, as you do this, kind of relate your internet speed to something that's more relatable, like miles per hour. It will just make it much more easier for you to comprehend, especially when you're trying to relay information or for you to understand what it's doing. If you use miles per hour versus megabits per second, it'll make more sense to you. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope that taught you something new in way of looking at computers. And like I said, the upload and download speeds, they're important, but if you have no idea what those values mean, relate it to something that you can. Miles per hour, megabits per second. You're either walking, running, driving, or flying through the air. So you guys have a great weekend, or a great week and a great weekend. If I release this at the right time, it's going to be the week of Christmas, so you guys all have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. Talk to you later. You have a great day.